just a couple of years ago, I was on a highway somewhere in the US, and the person in the toll who was collecting the tickets, he's like, soon I'm going to lose my job to this AI stuff and automation. And I turned to him and I was trying to make light of it. I know he was upset, but I said, now you can go fishing and write poetry and go be the painter you've always wanted to be. Like, I think the whole economy is going to shift. This idea that we have to work, 10, 12 hours a day, punch a clock for money. I think all that's going to change. And we're going to enter a new era of, where creativity and innovation is going to be the new thing.
Welcome to the Humanity Code Conversations. I'm Heidi Lorenzen, and today we'll explore another perspective on intentionally shaping the future with AI, where our technology amplifies our shared humanity rather than diminishes it. Welcome to a special behind-the-scenes episode of the Humanity Code Conversations. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the creative minds behind our documentary with an intimate chat with my two incredible partners on this mission, Sergio Navarretta, our director, and James Haven, our creative advisor. Sergio is a humanity-first trailblazer in the film industry, an award-winning director whose projects dive deep into the human condition, and whose passion is searching for what makes us tick. From the poignant debut of Looking for Angelina, to the festival favorite, The Colossal Failure of the Modern Relationship, Sergio's films resonate with audiences around the globe. His most recent film, The Cuban, starring the late, great Oscar winner Louis Gossett Jr., further showcases his ability to bring powerful, perspective-shifting human stories to the screen. His skill at storytelling with meaning, not to mention his curiosity and cautious optimism about AI, unlike most of his peers, made him the perfect fit for the Humanity Code. James, too, brings a wealth of film experience and a heart full of purpose to our team. He's an accomplished actor, producer, and director, so he gets film from all angles. He also happens to come from Hollywood royalty, being the brother of Angelina Jolie and son of John Voight and the late Marceline Bertrand. Transcending his family's star power, James is a dedicated humanitarian, using his platform to advocate for human rights and environmental issues through his work with Artivist and other initiatives. His commitment to projects that make a difference, like the Humanity Code, not to mention his contagious enthusiasm, is truly inspiring to us. So usually at this time, the three of us are having our weekly check-in call, but today we're transforming that time into this episode. So thanks, Sergio and James, for being here. I know our audience is going to be eager to hear your thoughts on the Humanity Code, which, for those who don't yet know, is a feature-length documentary that explores the urgent race to encode humanity's best wisdom, values, and aspirations into AI before it's too late. No big deal, right? All right, let's get started. Most of these questions will be for both of you, but feel free to jump in whenever you want. So let's begin with your motivation for joining this project. What inspired you to say yes? And how does it align with your own sense of personal purpose? I'll start with you, Sergio.
I think that, just generally speaking, the title itself, the Humanity Code, I was interested in that. That was the first thing that drew me in. And just the idea that we can participate in a narrative that's going to affect not only our lives personally, but our children's lives, and that was very important to me. Also, when I started in film, I looked at it as a medium that has the power to affect change and to influence culture and society in general. And I stay committed to that mission. And as time goes on, that becomes more and more important. We're not interested in just making film for the sake of making film to sell overpriced popcorn. We really want to leave this world a little better, or feel like we at least made an impact. And something like this is just so topical and timely. And as an artist, I just want to participate in that narrative.
Beautiful. James?
I've always been, from as far back as I can remember, I've always had this tremendous sense of wonder about the universe and about, how things happen and come to be. And, I've heard there's like, hundreds of galaxies. And when millions of galaxies, when you hear a number like that, you just go, whoa, and 2 trillion stars and just all this amazing stuff. And so throughout history, I've always been fascinated by different moments that are pivotal in regard to that, in regard to humans. So you have like, obviously, when we first learned how to make fire, that they would say that was one of the biggest moments, or the wheel, some of these huge moments in time. And then, of course, we had the Industrial Revolution, which completely changed the world for all time. And the thing that got me so excited about this is that for years now, I've been hearing, first it started as whispers, of course, and then the voices got louder and it became AI, but mostly how afraid so many people were of AI. And I looked at it from the completely other side. I'm like, no, AI can be extraordinary. And so the moment I heard Heidi wanted to be more of that approach on this project, that's where I just jumped right in. I said, well, this is the ultimate opportunity to really dive in to understand all aspects of AI as it hasn't yet fully formed. And we get to describe what it could be, what it, could be one day, how it will affect humans, in the better. Instead of the worse. And so from immediately, once I realized that was the process, I was excited because, as I've said before, and I'll say again, I truly believe that AI, is like, I don't even know how to explain this enough because it's just, I'm so excited when I think about it, but it's just AI is like the ultimate kind of final moment as to how it all comes together, if that makes sense. Like, I don't think there's going to be another thing after AI. I think AI is the moment, and it's been talked about in science fiction books for years and different technology, working with humans with technology. And I just feel like in this moment, we're going to be able to literally map out our future, coded wise and also real wise, into the, horizon. So I couldn't be more excited to be a part of this. And I always love to be a part of historic things.
Unless World War III happens and it all goes boom, then.
Well, and I'm going to jump in there because I've said this before, and I know Sergio and Heidi will appreciate this. There's a part of me that wants to say that's another part of it is like, where does AI come in as we're defining now non-human, but having a more human answer? That would be just astounding to let AI give us answers to things that we've never really wanted to kind of like just explode our minds to and say, how do we avoid these things? And I mean really avoid these things. How do we solve these things once and for all? Because conflict's the big word, right? Seem to go on forever. They just go on, and there's up and down, but they never get solved. And so it would be amazing if AI somehow, I'm giving a lot of, praise to AI at this moment, but somehow if AI could take all the information man knows throughout history of the difference between, destruction and thriving and gives us some answer that's just like, oh my gosh, that's extraordinary, and then we all kind of understand it. So.
And on that note, we collectively believe that our film is unique because while it was instigated by AI suddenly being placed in everyone's hands with generative AI, it's really not about the technology. Humanity is the protagonist in the film. And so what do you, again, this will be for both of you, what do you see is at stake for our species? And how will this film explore that relationship between humanity and artificial intelligence?
I'm going to go I'm going to try to not get lost in this big concept here I'm about to go. But, stuff has happened in the last, let's just say 10 years. Let's just say in the last 10 years where we have seen before humans would be very interacting. Now, of course, we're on, some technological thing. We're in 3 different locations. We're still humans. We're still talking. We're still using language. We're still communicating. But as the last 10 years has unfolded, we've kind of gotten more and more away from certain aspects that I think that in the past humans would be fighting for, like to have that community, that sense of community, that sense of, non-isolation, which is so much isolation now. And the way the world's going, even whether you want to call it too much news or too much influence or influencers, where we just almost like it's a blur. What I'm saying is it's almost like, is there a this? Is there a that? What's the future? I don't know. Like it's like we're almost in this weird space. So what I just want to jump in with is that I think AI kind of gives us this opportunity to say, well, wait a second. Okay, this is pre all of this. Now you have this. Now where are we going to go with all this? And that's like one quick example I'll use is like, if you really use AI to make your lives better, well, then you're going to be able to be more human, actually. You're going to have more time to do other things that you've not been able to do at this time. You're going to be able to schedule better. You're going to be able to find little things that you used to have to take care of that seem menial tasks will all be done. Even as filmmakers, as Sergio knows, like in the past, you have to wait huge amounts of time, photographs and location scouting and all this stuff to kind of give your dream of what you want the production design to look like. Now we can do it in 15 minutes and I can just say, this is exactly what I want. There's no trips taken. There's no nothing having to done. You just, boom, you're there. So you can get right to it. So I think that my view is that it'll make our world better. It'll make our world better if we're willing to use it for that purpose, without question. That would be my response.
I agree with that. What I'm finding anecdotally is that when I'm in, say, pre-production or prep on a movie, it helps the communication. There's efficiencies in that, but it also helps in training us to ask better questions. Like I feel like there's a retraining that's happening in the way that we think about things, but more importantly, how we communicate. Because now I'm sort of forced to be super direct and clear in my communications. Because if I'm nuanced or ambiguous with AI, it just doesn't work. Like you have to be super clear. And I think it does the black and white very well. I think where humans are unique is we're nuanced. We bring emotion, we bring our past experiences to things, and we have what's called consciousness, which AI, at least as far as I know, doesn't have. It's more of a symbiotic partnership between technology and the human. So this idea that it's going to replace human intelligence or replace humans, I haven't been in any conversations or circles where that's even a possibility. Like most of the either companies or technologists or artists that I'm dealing with that use AI, it's always a complementary thing. It's never to replace a human. So I think ultimately, if it's done well, it will bring out the best in us, and I think that should be the goal.
Now, this is going to sound a little bit extreme, okay? Because as directors, you want your actors to be performing, especially if it's the method, which is what they call it, from real experience and whatever. But I do think also back to AI, and this is what has been driving me crazy for years, whether it's Siri, Alexa, whatever it is that there's a roboticness to it that you don't feel really understands what's going. Like it's just like yes, okay, but imagine if you could. Yeah, he knows where I'm going. Sergio knows where I'm going. Where imagine if this AI technology, which I know can happen, okay, almost like an acting class, was trained to use emotional behavior when answering things. So it's more like when you're talking about love, all of a sudden the AI understands the tone is changing. It's a different style. And what I mean by that is that I think that unlike it being fake, which some people might think it's just doing behavior, which is okay to say at first, but I think as humans, the more a Siri or Alexa or whatever we're talking about here, other AIs, are speaking to us with those types of emotions, the more we're going to interact with them in a more realistic way. And in turn, we'll ask them to do things that are more human and less just techie, if that makes any sense. I hope that makes sense. Because I always think about that. Like when I go to Siri, for example, it's always just like, I'm doing a command, but it's a very direct thing. Like text Heidi. What do you want to say to Heidi? Say this. But it's it's not like a flowingness to it, which might change the text words or might change, all that. So I think more human makes us more human. We make it more human interaction, stuff like that is the possibility.
Yeah, absolutely. The Gemini just had an ad on the Olympics. I don't know if you saw this, but it's very relevant to what you're both saying. It backfired. It essentially showed an athlete with his daughter who wanted to write fan mail to another athlete that she aspired to be. And the ad basically has the father turn the whole act over to Gemini AI to write the letter, and the backlash is around, why would you want to deplete the creativity of a young child? And so it's really interesting. There's so much potential, and yet there's so much that we also want to hang on to with our own humanity. Shifting gears a bit, I get asked a lot, do we have an answer that we're leading to with the film? Like, is there a theory that we're we're concluding with? And my answer is always a hard no, because it's literally impossible for anyone to have the answers to where AI will take us, partly because a lot hinges on the decisions that we collectively make in the next few years, and partly because there's a very real black box element to AI. So Sergio, I know you have a strong point on this, of how you hope to take the audience on a journey of discovery with us. Would you elaborate on why you think that's important, and how you'll bring that to life?
Well, I think part of the filmmaking process, because it's an art form, I mean, there's part, I see myself as a bit of a magician, and there are things, there's a bit of things that are contrived and tools that I have that I can make people feel a certain way or lead them on a journey. But if it's too predetermined, it's like Quincy Jones said, you plan 80%, but you leave the door open, and that 20% is where God walks in, and then boom, the magic happens. Whatever God is, like that, whether it's creativity or whatever. And that's one thing. The other is I learned from one of the producers of Fahrenheit 9/11. This was a long time ago, but he said to me, and I never forgot it. He said, "You pose a question, and you set out to answer that question. So it takes you on a quest. It's like the hero's journey, right? If you know the answer, it's not as compelling. So it's a journey for the filmmakers, but it's also a journey for the audience. And I think that's what's important. If I know the ending, then it's harder to get out of bed. Like this exciting is that we embark on this journey without knowing where it's going to take us, and hopefully in the end it makes us better humans, whether it's this film or any film in general. I mean, it's the whole point of making film is not to get to the end, to the final point. It's about, to use a cliche, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey, and what it makes of us as people. And so that's my point of view. It's just like, you go into it open-hearted, and you just see where it takes us, and what we learn in the process. And I've learned so much already.
James, do you have any comment on that, or I have another question for you?
Well, no, first of all, I agree with everything Sergio said. And the only thing I would just add to that is that I think that just on a creative level, because Sergio understands this, and even technological level, that's where the phrase stifling comes into place. Because you just get to a place where you just stop. You just go, well, we've done it. And you go, no, if the phone can do this, it could also do this. 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 It could also do this, and you just keep, so it's the same thing with creativity. It's like, I directed the best movie of the year, I got an Oscar. I got a screenplay I wrote, I got producing, I got the big trifecta. I'm going to retire now. No. Now the curiosity becomes, what's the next thing you're going to do after all that? So I agree. I don't think there's ever an ending, ever. But I think that's, to really emphasize what Sergio is saying from a creative perspective, that's the beauty. The real beauty is there is no ending. There's no ending. It's just an endless cycle of what do you want to do with life or whatever else. Now, the only thing I will add to that, the only thing I'll add is that, like we said in the very beginning of this podcast, where you want to question is where things are unresolved. And that's where I think AI can help us, is the things that are unresolved that we can complete and then learn something else. It's almost like when you say I went to high school, well, usually, unless it's different, places in the world, usually you're a freshman, then you're a sophomore, then you graduate, but then there's more learning. Then you go to college if you go, but you still okay, but you don't want to keep saying I'm a freshman. I'm still a freshman. I just never leave freshman. So I think that's the aspect, is that we need to kind of get to a place, which I look forward to, where humanity really does evolve from certain moments into other moments of more. And that's where AI, I think, will actually help us get out of ourselves and go there. Just like when man went on the moon, or just like when we broke the stratosphere, or just like when we first were able to get all the amazing visuals of the galaxies and all the planets. That's a game changer. All of a sudden, it's like, what is out there? It's like, before that, we didn't know what was out there. If we never went up there, we never would have known. So I'm so glad we went up there, that kind of thing. So let's push ourselves to go to deeper places in our mind and use more than whoever came up with this. I don't even know, but someone said we only use 10% of our brain. I'm like, let's use 20. Let's just go there. How about that? Let's let AI help us use 20% of our brain. So then at least we see what that is, which would be amazing. So there you go.
Yeah. Imagine that. Yeah.
Well, don't get me started. Well, no, and then the famous joke. Some people go, I don't want to use any of it. Just tell me where to go, what to do. Yeah, stop. Okay.
No, I said 10 is being generous. Some people don't even use that.
We said at the beginning of the call, we're not in this to make art for art's sake, but hopefully to change the trajectory of humanity's relationship with AI. So, James, I'd love for you to share your vision for the tangible impact that we'll have. It's, kind of taking what you're just talking about, but even, pushing the envelope more of what do you hope audiences will take away from watching the Humanity Code? What do you hope they'll do? And what difference will it make?
My greatest hope, and I truly believe it will happen, my greatest hope is that they will, which is a biggie, it's a big biggie, is they will actually believe in possibilities of what they can utilize it for that they never thought was possible. So it's almost like by changing the narrative, coming off the negative, going to the positive, they will actually start utilizing it for just extraordinary ways. One example I always give, which is a biggie, but it's as big as it gets. It's our technology now tells us where we are, tells us what we can do, all this stuff is all in our phones. So if you want to start, addressing some of the most serious issues like human trafficking or anything like that, you can really do major dent in regard to that in a way that's never been done before. And so I look forward to those types of things where an average person who thinks they have to always look to others to just change their lives, they can use the AI to better their communities, to better their children's safety, to better, their work, to better whatever. And so it's something that just becomes an actual good in their life. That would be my greatest dream for this project, is that it by changing the trajectory, we never come back from that. We just look at it as a beautiful opportunity for good that we can be using, all of us can be using, because we do have this technology. We do have this ability to all use it. It's just a matter of if we're going to use it or not. What I'm really getting at, I guess, is the last point I will say is like, instead of so many of us complaining, it always seems like we're complaining. There's always an issue. There's always a that. It's more of going, no, we have the solution. Let's use it to solve these things. So we're not always complaining. That's what I look forward to.
Sergio, what are your thoughts? What are your hopes for a takeaway?
Empowerment and freedom. Those are the sort of words that come to mind. I remember just a couple of years ago, I was on a highway somewhere in the US, and the person in the toll, who was collecting the tickets, he's like, soon I'm going to lose my job to this AI stuff and automation. And I turned to him and I was trying to make light of it. I know he was upset, but I said, now you can go fishing and write poetry and go, be the painter you've always wanted to be. Like I think the whole economy is going to shift. This idea that we have to work, 10, 12 hours a day, punch a clock for money. I think all that's going to change. And we're going to enter a new era of, where creativity and innovation is going to be the new thing, where humans can wake up in the morning, instead of grabbing a ticket in a parking lot, can think about how to make humanity better. I don't think we've been put on this earth just to kind of take up space and, create widgets in a manufacturing plant. I think we come with tremendous creativity, and I think AI, if it's utilized correctly and put out there correctly, I think it has the potential to bring out the best in us. Like I said before, I think it does have that potential to elevate the best parts of ourselves.
And to your point about the fear and this very, very real transition that we're going going to have to go through before we can get to that beautiful other side where we're writing poetry. A question for both of you. This film is definitely about really heavy existential and scary stuff. I mean, it's valid that people are are fearful, and yet we're of the shared mindset that if we can inspire people to intentionally leverage the few years that we have while we're in, still in control, there is this possibility that, as you've mentioned, where we can collectively co-create with AI as our new powerful partner, sort of a reset of civilization that exceeds our wildest dreams. But there is, this really valid and real transition. We want people to feel inspired and not hopeless the way some other kind of social impact films do. And at first we actually need people to see it. So how does one balance, you guys are the pros, how do we balance the entertainment value with the more serious, thought-provoking aspects of the film?
Well, I'll jump in a little bit of that, and we'll probably go back and forth on this. I think this is a really phenomenal question. I'll start with the idea that, okay, obviously in the last year or so, there was a movie that got Best Picture called Oppenheimer, and a lot of people who know what that time of our lives was about was potentially, destroying the entire world. And what didn't happen, could have happened, didn't happen. And I've always said this. I said that, not that we're going to get all the answers, very quickly, but I go, how many safeguards have been put into place throughout the decades or whatever to make sure that these things just don't launch themselves, for example? I mean, like, you got to just go, how's that not possible, that certain things that could be so destructive, let alone it's other countries that are at war with each other, but just the technology itself. How has that technology that controls all of that not had that moment, right? So I'm curious because that's why I'm bringing it up to modern day, which is everybody's so afraid of AI, but they're not saying, well, what are the things you're going to do to make sure that these things don't happen? So just to bring up the past to the present, I'd be very curious to know, well, what can we do? Which is the point of why we're making, one of the reasons is the focus of good is what is the good that we can do with this so it doesn't turn against, like, what is the good instead of destroying the world, we can help the world. With answers of real problems. Just one quick example, I'm not saying that AI is going to give this answer, but I always go back to it. I go, we have a plastic problem, but no one's told me how to reverse engineer plastic. So when it's being used out of the liquid or whatever's being used, it just decomposes into like dust. Like, why does it have to become such a problem? It's a chemical that makes it, and okay. But that's just something AI might say. Like, if you did this, revert, you'd be able to, let's try it. Oh, it worked. I mean, that would be just like, right, mind blowing. So stuff like that. So that's where I would start with that. And then, I'll pivot to Sergio now, but then I might come back with the more entertainment aspect.
Yeah, I think we've been telling stories since the beginning of humanity. I think storytelling is our gift and talent. And I think whatever the topic is, that's sort of our job, whether it's a 3-act structure or whatever, we'll structure it in a way that will be entertaining and thought provoking. But when I look at, like, me personally, if I'm looking at AI in medicine, and there's people now saying in the next 10 years, 20 years, we have the ability with the help of AI to extend human life to 150 years old. And we'll see that in our lifetime. It's like, wow. So it's like shifting paradigms. It's like starting to share mind-blowing stuff. And, my own doctor said that, wouldn't it be amazing if we can empower, like, the person doing the ultrasound, the ultrasound technician. Now we're not just relying on their experience and them sitting in a lab for 10 hours, they're exhausted, there's all these things. Now they're tapping into every ultrasound that's ever been done since the beginning of time. So the ability to process data at lightning speed is going to really help us in terms of living better quality of life, detecting things like cancer years before they manifest. So I think it's that, just helping people expand their minds. What if we bring AI to the most economically challenged places in the world and say, now you can create a business plan in 30 seconds. Here are the parameters. This is how you do it. And, all the graphic elements, social media, marketing, it can all be put through this chat GPT, and it'll figure it all out for you. So now suddenly we're bringing out the best in humanity. It's not just, oh, you were born into the right family or the right country or the right, it's like, it's giving everybody, it's true capitalism in a sense. It's like opening it up for everybody. So I think that's how you do it, is just by hitting those really sensational sort of key topics, and then making it visually stunning so that it pays off for an audience.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. And I think the idea of the entertaining aspect is just really seeing what's possible. I mean, Sergio brought a great example about medicine right there. When we're not told fully what something is, it's like, that's why we brought up the example as filmmakers in regard to like production design. If I don't see it firsthand, I have to like, okay, let me go and let me do. So it becomes that. But if, like, say, Sergio paints a picture of the future of medicine, when you go in and you start to see it, humans who are watching that will get so excited to see that that's something they will want. That is something they will demand. That is something that will be, instead of it being like, keep that secret, and then before you know it, that's not capable to do that anymore, because medicine gets, all that kind of stuff where it's like they're going against the system. But this is the idea of evolution, the idea of saying this is the future of medicine, this is the future of all these different things, even in regard to issues going on in regard to the seas, like pollution or whatever else, to really give those answers and then to utilize those answers for real. Not one organization or one ego or one whatever, but just a common thing that makes the whole world go, that's what we're going to do. Okay, got it. So I think that as Sergio will paint it, I think it'll become very attractive, and then people will see what's possible and then want it, and then take it their own way as well, which is why we're doing the project, to let people be involved in their own creative ways of what they think it can become.
Yeah, and getting that alignment that you were talking about of people coming together and agreeing, yeah, we want that. That's a tricky part too, and another unique element of what we're doing is bringing together a broad diversity of voices that we're curating. And on the one hand, we've got, yes, the technologists, and yes, the policymakers, of course, but on the other hand, those who are helping us understand what it means to be human, whether it's artists or spiritual leaders or philosophers, not to mention everyday people on the street. And so I think that's an interesting question I know we're going to explore, but to take double click on that art piece a bit. I think the art side's interesting because in this film, there's sort of a meta play here for us in the use of AI in the art. And I know you both know and hear firsthand that many in the film industry are very, very opposed. There's been work stoppages. And what I'd love to hear your view of AI in the film, because it is, in the film industry, it is a bit different, whether it's for production, storytelling, etc. And then would love to get into a little bit the meta way in which we would love to use AI in the film without giving away too much.
I think if it's used responsibly, it's a great idea. It's like, people, just to use a different example, people use cultural appropriation. There's a lot of debate around that. But if a filmmaker is intelligent about it, and it's done with consultation and with respect and reverence, that's different than, and AI is the same. I mean, it's how we engage with it. Like right now, I'm sort of like being forced to open up my mind in terms of what's possible. Like I've always conceived projects that are contained because I have to work within a certain budget and time frame. Now people are telling me with virtual screens and AI, it's like now I can dream up anything I want, and the sky's the limit. It's like, okay, now it's on me. You know what I mean? Now it's like, now I have to,
On the human.
yeah, really access that creativity and overcome those fears, because I have all the tools at disposal. And I think where it helps is if the artists, like whether it's the cinematographer, the DOP, the production designer, if we're all engaging and using it as a tool, the outcome will be amazing. We cannot use it as a replacement to the artist. Like that just won't fly. And some people might not like me saying this, but there are like assistants to assistants to assistants that might, those jobs might be eliminated, but those people might actually be empowered to do more creative things. So I'm just seeing, it just feels like a shift. We're just shifting, but it's not devastating in any way. Like the cinematographer I'm working with now embraces it, doubles down on it. He's using it in every way possible, and it's been amazing to work with somebody who's using it for efficiencies. In the previous stage, it's like I want to see the whole movie, every shot, every like on a timeline, because I'm a very visual person. How do we do that? And within seconds, like we don't need a 30-person team. It's like boom, here it is, and now I can show it to everybody that I'm collaborating with, and we're all sort of on the same page. I think that's exciting. So I think, and one last thing on that, if artists are compensated and they're getting residuals, like if my image and likeness is scanned and then 20 different people are using it for podcast, I don't know, for whatever, but I'm getting residuals and I'm getting paid as an artist, I can be in way more places at the same time doing way more things, making a much bigger impact. So I think they'll figure it out. I think right now it's just the Wild West and everybody's freaking out.
Yeah, I think that's a good start point. I'm going to come from a couple different sides here. Basically, I always use the parking structures to make a quick point. If all of us went into a parking structure, because almost every car today, I mean, if not every car today, literally has technology. And let's just use that for an example. Just say, as of now, every car has this technology. You come into a parking structure. James, welcome to Westfield Mall. Boom. It tracks it. It knows my, Apple Pay, whatever. Boom. That means there's no one loses a ticket. That means no one hasn't paid yet. That means no one whatever. So you're in, you're out. You pay before you get to the front. So the idea of that efficiency is extraordinary. And nobody should be saying, no, those jobs are going to be like, no, this is a concept that's larger than that. There should be other jobs that they can get or better jobs than they can get. But that's an idea of efficiency. So back to what Sergio was saying on the film, it's the same thing. I agree. The assistant, yes, those jobs may go, but then there's other jobs they may go get or other jobs will be created down the line. So just to lose something doesn't mean we're not gaining something. It's like, it's not just a loss. And I think we have to start getting that in our heads, like just start to push things for those other things. And then on the creative level, I'll just use myself as a personal example. I mean, I have a lot of things in the future I'm going to be doing, whether I'm directing a movie, whether I'm giving a speech. I mean, if I give my likeness and my full AI, I've written the speech, okay, I've written it. I let AI do my full likeness somewhere in the world, like it's a presentation. I'm giving a speech, just the speech. Doesn't matter if I'm in person. It's just James is giving a speech, and it's my speech. Not even a performance per se, just a speech. I have no problem with that. It's my likeness. It's me giving the speech. I'm giving the go. I couldn't be there in person. Otherwise, it would have just been, me, whatever, saying, sorry, I couldn't be there today. Forget it. Let's use it for that utilage. And then back to Sergio's point with actors or musicians or whatever, if you say, I accept all of that. I accept it's my likeness. I accept it's my voice. I accept it's whatever. I make money off it. As long as we're all agreeing on it, it's like, I know they changed Twitter to X, but the idea is just even that little check mark that says this is his real account. Whatever that new thing we have to create to say this is where James has okayed this video or okayed this movie, not on the screen, but just there's some place where I've okayed it as an actor or as a whatever, there should be no problem. So it's really just utilizing. It's never going to take over a full performance. There's no point. Why would actors get into acting? I don't need to ever do a performance. What are we talking about here? It's not going to happen. It's more just where you utilize it for certain purposes. Could be even commercials in the future. A very good example is think of any actor you love who has a certain look. And that was the look they did in that movie. And it's a very iconic look. Say it's like Matthew McConaughey in Dazed and Confused, a very iconic type thing. Well, if he was using that likeness and there was a commercial using that likeness, you don't need Matthew. You just say, we're going to take that image, we're going to do the likeness, we shoot it, we all know the character, done, makes a little money, everybody's happy. So those ways, but it's not a completely new performance of Matthew McConaughey in Dazed and Confused. It's not I don't see that ever happening. So yeah, that's what I would throw down.
There's so much resistance, though, because of people's mindsets around how things are done, right? I mean, I think that's probably our biggest challenge is to bring people along to imagine differently and just think differently about what can be, how things can happen. What do you think is key to this, literally global mindset shift that needs to happen?
I think it's scary for people to have freedom and autonomy, and because with that comes responsibility. I'm just speaking for myself. I'm totally guilty of this. I sometimes like that structure and the world telling me what to do and how to do it. um if suddenly I wake up and it's like, I don't have bills to pay, and I don't have all the challenges and adversities that come with being in our industry, then it's all on me. Then it's like, well, why am I not creating today? I have all the tools. It's just becoming exceedingly easier. And that's what I tell, like, when I do workshops with emerging filmmakers. Like, I'm doing another one at the end of the month, and it's like, there's no excuse. Like, when I started, I needed 35 millimeter film, 100 people, a lab, like, a lot of money and all that stuff. All that's gone away. Now we have a cell phone. You can make movies on a cell phone. So it's putting the power, in the hands of the artists, and then it's really up to us. So I think that's scary for people. I think, it's that paradigm shift. Like, I remember when I was growing up, people used to smoke on airplanes, and it was a very normal thing. And they smoked, my parents, we'd go to Europe and they smoke on the airplane. And then, people would be smoking in hospitals. If somebody told me then one day that's going to be like absolutely like forbidden, like, it'll be like a social no, like unthinkable, I would be like, well, that's, how long is that going to take? And it literally, how long did it take? 10 years? You know, it's just, I think those paradigm shifts can happen very quickly, but there's growing pains that come along.
James, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I agree with Sergio just said. I mean, and that's the trick. You know, a lot of people want freedom. They want autonomy. They want all this stuff, and then you give it to them like, whoa, that wasn't exactly what I was talking about. Which is always a strange. Yeah, it's so true. It's completely true. But I think also in that aspect, I think there will be a growing pain moment. But I do love the idea of that growing pain moment, because in that moment, um, they will become more responsible. And I always say that about human beings. It's like, what is one of the things that makes us human? It's like, well, if there's no food in the fridge or no food in the cupboard, you're not going to just sit there and go, well, I'm getting hungry. Are you getting hungry? Yeah, I'm getting hungry. You got to go out. You got to actually go out, or you got to deliver. But I'm just making the point. You have to do an action. The point is, there's no inaction in that. There's an action. And that's what I think is going to happen, is that people, when they have to be more responsible, they'll be more responsible. If they don't have to be, then, well, okay. But I think it'll change a lot of the ways people do things. I truly believe for the better. I just simply believe for the better, because even that nuances, which Sergio said really early in the podcast, when I talk to Siri, I go back to, I never say, hey, Siri. She goes, I'm busy right now. Just let me have a minute. I'll be right back. What? You know what I mean? Because then it becomes like, well, how much time do you need? We're talking, and like, there's almost too much, you know what I mean? It's almost like, right? It's like you get a quick boom, right? So the thing is, as Sergio hinted at early too, I think it will make us better. It literally will just make us better at being in the moment, like just being more, talking, and not just like kind of being, flippant and stuff. It'll be, just, yeah, I'll be there at 5. Okay, great. I'll see it. Boom. That sounds great. I'll be there. Boom. Like, I think there's a part of it that'll be just, a little more on point. And I think that's better. I think that's a lot better. So, I'm looking forward to that.
If it's agnostic and neutral and non-biased and as objective as possible, I think the advantage that AI has is it can analyze a situation, because humanity is cyclical. Every war, everything, like, I feel like when you look back at history, there's very few people in the world, whether academic or otherwise, that can look at that, process that information, and then spit out an opinion about where we should be today, or how do we solve a current war that we're in the world. AI is non-feeling, non-emotional, so it's able to look at things in a very analytical, non-emotional way, which is really helpful, because everything we process and everything we say and do is filtered through our emotions and through our past conditioning and experiences. But I think it's very helpful to have that, you know, um, even in the personal development space. Like, say there was an app where I can just say, here's the situation, and it just says, no, this is the way you handle it, or that's, like, it's take every brilliant psychologist and every philosopher throughout history, train it based on those philosophies, and then have that as an ally and make it available to everybody. I mean, I think the objectivity of it is also very refreshing.
I love all that. And just to add to that, the idea, like the voice of reason, exactly. The idea that it would be very refreshing, because even in regard to whether it's beliefs we have, different religions or different politics or different whatever, just to give a very non-emotional response. Because that's the thing about life. That's what I was saying before. It's like everybody's always got this like thing going on. And if you're just going, well, religion began when da 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 da, or, politics began, the parties decided to, and you're kind of listening to it, but it doesn't sound threatening. It's just like, oh, okay, that's, okay, got it. And so I agree with that it's like instead of becoming, because that's the problem. That's literally the problem. No matter anything else we're talking about, there's a bias. There's a little bit of a bias, in regard to whatever. And this doesn't have that bias. It's even like I brought this up before, so I'll put it on the podcast. I remember saying, like, imagine if, just let's just say American wars, for example. So let's just say first you take The Art of War by Sun Tzu. So you have AI have all that information. Then you have all the history of American wars, Revolutionary War, Civil War, World War II, Vietnam. You just have all the light. And then it's able to decipher the moments where we were really good at what we did or we weren't good, where we were very efficient, we weren't efficient. And then it kind of summarizes it all in one big bubble. And then imagine like the President of the United States sitting there with his advisors, but then AI is one of the advisors. Like literally, like there's an AI going, whatever the name is at the time, they call it, and they ask AI, what are you feeling? And AI goes, based on all the circumstances I'm seeing in the situation, the best approach would be, yeah. But just imagine it knowing everything I just said, and in like 10 seconds, it going, the way to approach this would be this. And it's almost like everyone's listening. Mr. President, that would work. Almost like one of those like moments where it would just be like, wow, what a great way to process all that stuff. Or not perfect. Just go, that would initiate this. We would be able to lead to this, but then we'd have to make sure this. Okay, it's not going to be perfect. It's a dance. But the idea of it is utilizing it for those purposes without a biased response. And that's the thing that Sergio emphasized. And that's why it's going to make us, if not just how can we be more human, I think AI will make us better human beings. And that's another way to look at it too. I think it'll make us better human beings because a lot of these behaviors we've had throughout history, as I always go back to the word evolve, what does evolve mean? There's devolve and there's evolve. You know what I mean? Like, are we devolving or are we evolving? There's that famous story, there's that famous t-shirt, of like I think it's a Neanderthal again, whatever, and then it ends up with the guy on the couch, like the chair sitting at the computer, really overweight, and you're like, oh my God, we devolved. Like what happened here? But it's like, let's do the flip of that, this time using more our minds than just our physicalness. How do we evolve as human beings and in turn become better human beings? And that ties into one other thing, which ties back to medicine, which is very dear to my heart. The more AI, and I know AI will do this, the more AI can either screen, diagnose mental health disorders, mental health issues, all that kind of stuff, the sooner it happens, the better. And then you don't have to deal with ailments later on, because that's so much of the work I do, is that we kind of just think, well, that happened when you were 7, that happened when you were whatever, almost like get over it or whatever the human does. But AI can break it down the information that I know and make a normal average human who's not been trained in trauma understand it and go, oh, well, that's going to have a direct effect for this later, so we should probably address this now, and do it again in a I love that emphasis, like Sergio said, the more AI is non-biased, the more it won't be threatening, and the more we'll be able to listen to the information and really go, it's a really good observation.
And the example, my fantasy for the example that you gave around war is exactly what you just said with with medicine is, can we get to the point where we're actually preempting war because we've evaluated and recognizing, okay, we're escalating to that point where we humans have turned to war, which we don't love, but somehow we keep doing. If we could somehow reach a point where we're preempting that.
And just to add to that, Heidi, because I know we all agree on this, that's another thing. Really, AI this is one of the first things I want AI to do, like immediately. Whether we sadly ever get to a World War III potential, hopefully never, but we all are thinking it, so I'll just put that out there. But let's just say that never happens. But preempting that, what I really want to see happen with AI is an ability to, whenever there is an incident throughout the world, it has a kind of quick to listen, slow to speak, which is a biblical quote. This idea of let's just take a second and say, okay, this is what's going to happen if we go full blown. This is what's going to happen if we tactically take this on in this way. Then you'll be able to take out the issue that caused the incident. You'll be able, instead of inflaming it into something else, which then turns into something that can go on forever. And that's something I really look forward to AI doing? Because what I'm getting at, obviously, is human life. Is that it starts with there's a human life that is being put into a conversation of like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. And then the response is always 100-fold or 200, like it becomes this whole other thing. And that's how wars break out. And that's how, so much non-human, if you will, or inhuman, if you will, behavior happens. And it'd be nice to get to the point where we address that in a different fashion.
Speaking of evolution, that you mentioned a bit ago, evolution and devolving, this is for both of you, a personal question, how has your understanding of AI evolved through working on this project? What's been your biggest aha so far?
For me, it's been a rebirth, because the more I play with it, the more I work with collaborators that are using it, the more I see potential. And I feel like a kid in a candy store. And that sort of started to go away, because we were doing things the same way for 100 years. And, I felt like we were hitting a bit of a wall in terms of innovation and creativity, at least for me. So what I've learned is that the future is bright and there's possibility. And as long as, there isn't sinister operators behind the curtain, that we actually want to create this technology to make humanity better, and we all have that same objective. I think it's going to be phenomenal, and I'm excited for the first time in a while for what's possible in our industry and in life in general. If I can hand off, all my accounting to AI, for example, and never have to think about it again, fantastic. Or scheduling or logistics, like, man, or just like domestic, things that take up all our time, so I can laser focus on creating. I that's what I've learned, and it's been a big game changer in that sense.
Beautiful. James.
Yeah, I'll come off the kid in the candy store. I mean, I was named after, I just saw it actually 2 nights ago. It was fantastic. I saw the last show of Peter Pan at the Pantages. And I was named after Peter Pan, James Barrie, who wrote it. And so for me, I'm very much that kid in the candy store. And I always love to be the kid who doesn't grow up and just has tremendous sense of wonder. And so prior to this project, I had a million ideas for a million different things. And then once I started to get involved with this project, now I have a billion ideas. Now it's larger than life. It's like I go back to that thing I said in the very beginning of the podcast. I said, when I found out that there's 200 billion galaxies and 2 trillion stars, I mean, let's say it one more time, there's 200 billion galaxies and there's 2 trillion stars. Well, I want to know what AI can do with that. I mean, I want AI to map that. And maybe I'm making a joke here, but let's just say we asked AI to do that at some point. It says, that'll take 3 days, 22 minutes. Yeah, but that's worth it. That's 200 billion galaxies. That's 2 trillion stars. So for me, that's something that can give some great answers to the universe, things we don't even know yet, that can affect our lives here. Who knows what that could do by understanding all of that, let alone what it did for my mind, on this planet in regard to the things that I want to do with my life into the future with my future wife, my future children, my future way of, behaving with humans, the way of interacting. So it's actually just made me really go to like a larger space of dreaming, which is what I love more than anything. So a little, just like Sergio, I mean, I wake up every day, like I usually always jump out of bed, but I feel even more an excitement to jump out of bed now and to just get into that space of what's the future in all aspects. I mean, I'm very fond of, no traffic in LA, which of course we experienced for one brief period, during COVID. But I know that if I work with AI, like give me a weekend with AI, I'll solve the traffic in Los Angeles. And even if I have to guide it a bit, I'd be like, okay, get it to do a simulate, okay, da-da-da-da. I just feel like I could get AI to say, this is how you solve traffic in all of Los Angeles, and then do an entire presentation, and they go, that would work. That would actually work. That would actually solve, which would be like the biggest historic thing in Los Angeles. You could just put that on the cover of the LA Times. AI solves Los Angeles traffic forever. That's like, but it's that, but I know we're headed there. Like, I know it. Like, so that's what I'm saying is for me personally, it excites me what this project means to me personally, and then what it's going to mean for the world.
Then you're going to have 30 upset people that get paid to do nothing all day.
Well, but that's this whole thing is that it becomes where we have to, it's the growing pains, as you said perfectly, sir. This idea of where we have to just, if you want to, and that's what it also is too. It's like, if you want to solve these things, if you want to do it, then, and that's why, it's so important the way we're creating this, because no one owns it yet, or trying to, what I'm saying, when I'm saying owns it, no one's controlling it and manipulating it and saying, no, AI can't do that. What are you talking about? It could do it 2 days ago. No, it can't do that. It actually can't do that. So it's very important the way we present this, in this moment, so people really do understand what it's capable of. Like, no, it can do that. In fact, it's done that. In fact, it can do more than that, and things you haven't even thought of.
On that note, speed round, what are the AI applications for the betterment of humanity, that you're most excited about? So you've mentioned medicine, for example, traffic management. What are the ones that most excite you, that you think will have the biggest impact?
I think life management. When I think about the things that give me anxiety or get me stressed out during the day, I feel like 80 or 90% of that's going to go away in the next 2-3 years. That's what I'm most excited about, is efficiency, so that it frees up my time to do the things that I feel I'm on this earth to do. So it's time management. It's, and on the creative side, like I said earlier, I'm just like totally excited about the ability to previs, concepts, storytelling concepts. It's like, I want to be in this alternative universe. Boom, boom, boom. You're in a 360 set. And, there was a studio out of Texas. They just did a 1-hour demo with me. And this is all over Zoom. And he's like, okay, here's the set. Here's the horse. Here's the cactus. Where do you want to move it? It's like I was able to kind of like pre-visualize and direct a scene, while I was sitting on my couch. Like, it's just a different experience. So I'm so excited about that, and also the ability to collaborate with artists around the world simultaneously without having to get on a plane and like actually physically go and see them. So those are the things. And then I think one time used an example about, imagine if you can walk into an airport and everything's just done for you. Oh, that would be, for me, there.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's actually exactly where I was going to start. I was going to say, imagine if everything was just literally automated, and even when there's issues, because, one of my biggest things is, when you're on a plane, I don't care if you have, some people have this, but it's not automated. You're on a plane. There's a mechanical issue. Some people have to stand in line. Some people have to call the airline. Some have to use their app. Imagine it is clean. Moment the flight is canceled, you're put on another flight, just really clean. So yes, the idea that it's all automated, it's very easy. But then even regarding what Sergio said before of life, what are the thoughts we all have during the day? Now, this is getting all specific now, but it's like your children are at school. I've always said this. I use my Coldplay analogy to make a point. If Coldplay goes on tour, right? Yeah, I'll see a pop, I'll see this if I'm lined up to their web or, site tour. But here's simple. Imagine Siri out of nowhere going, "Hi, James, are you awake? I'm sorry. Are you still sleeping?" "No, I'm up. I just want to let you know Coldplay just announced whatever." But what I mean is, she's so ahead of it that it's the same thing with, and this is going very extreme now, but imagine the future now. Your kid's school play is starting at 7:30 tonight. The traffic is very bad. The principal has believed it's probably going to start more like 8 o'clock. I know that sounds like, whoa, but it's like, again, it's back to, we're not all there early. We're not fighting the park. We're not, like, again, as Sergio said, making daily life very simple. So, where your kid is, if they've left the school, obviously. You have a little track on that, whatever that is, which they already have, I know. But I'm just making the point, like, it's all very efficient in that way. The more it interacts with us, and that's what it is. It's the more it interacting with us instead of us interacting with it. I think that's the big difference. The big difference now is that we have to be the active player always. And it'll be very nice when AI is more of an equal player in our lives, which I look forward to very much. And then the apps are endless. I think the apps are just completely endless. The applications of what it could do for us, even back to, medicine, even back to filmmaking. YouTube's a great example, just a quick example, but it's pretty much everything's on there. You know what I mean? If you have a question, there's some person that's going to say at least a few minutes worth of information based on that. Right. Just real quickly, like, oh, you want to talk about the revolutionary word? It'll start because da-da-da-da, and actually started because you walk into a room like the revolutionary word. That's 5 minutes of just learnedness. So it's there, but again, AI grabbing it for us, AI always having it at our disposal to assist us. Even a person nervous to go on stage, I can tell that your heart rate is, James, a little bit, what do you, whatever. I said, I don't know. I just feel like I need to start with a joke. Well, let me work on jokes. What's the audience again? Okay, let me work on some jokes. Give me a few minutes. And then, but again, it's that idea of like, it's your friend, as Steve Jobs, who's my hero. So maybe a little shout to Steve Jobs here. He said, it has to talk. That most unbelievable statement Steve Jobs said when the first Mac was launched. He said, it has to talk because this is a personal computer and it has to be very personal. It has to talk. So it's the same thing with AI. I want to see AI become, like your best, pal right there, always there for you, who utilize for the things you need in life. And it would be very nice.
You're wishing for and creating like the ideal executive assistant. One in my life who was always a step ahead. She knew like everything. Like, my friend had his whole life planned. Like she knew like, oh, that flight's going to be delayed. I'm going to put you on this flight. He literally just like, here's my agenda for the day. I'm just going to hyper focus on what I'm good at. And everything else was taken. It'd be amazing.
Yeah, and that's the key. That's very key. And exactly. And also just, and again, this is getting very extreme here because again, this is not capable yet. So that's part of the fun. It's going to happen. I always say things and then it happens. There it is. Okay. But I'm just saying it's going to be very interesting to see, as I said, the more AI knows us, so I use the Coldplay analogy, the more it knows us, the more it knows what I love, what I hate, I get scared, what I get, whatever. I mean, imagine even if I was afraid of the rain, which sounds extreme. Okay. But imagine I was afraid of the rain and AI knows that. And AI knows the weather and AI knows it's happening and AI is there to somehow to give me advice or to whatever, knowing the rain's going to come and I'm going to go into a certain space. That's extraordinary. I mean, that's extraordinary. And so stuff like that, I'm very curious to see, how it can actually, and again, make us better humans. As simple as that sounds, make us better humans. Sometimes we talk out loud, and if AI hears us, they may answer the question we're talking out loud, which would be extraordinary. Whatever question we might throw out to the universe.
The most exceptional hotel chain, the Four Seasons, that started in Toronto, Canada. Like years ago, they tracked what newspaper you're reading. I'm gluten intolerant. They knew that, like, and they're tracking all this stuff. So like you show up 6 months later, you feel like they know you. And they had that nailed, so I feel like AI is going down that same path and all these businesses are going to be able to utilize that. It's like before you even walk into the restaurant, they already know what you like, and how you like it. Kind of cool.
And that's it. And that's exactly right. The more they know, that's just like the Hay Adams Hotel, which is across from the White House. I swear, I'm not there for years. And every time I walk in, it's like immediately, Mr. Haven, welcome back. Just, oh my gosh, you guys still, okay, yeah. It's always like that. But that's a political thing. Politicians, the famous thing, they always know your name. People are always so surprised. That's the number one rule of a politician, know the name. How's your wife doing? How's Mary? Oh my gosh, doesn't forget. It's like, well, that's the heart of it, That's the art of a politician. But if AI can become like that, it'd be amazing.
Without all the other things attached to politicians.
Yes, get rid of the rest. And but that's that special interest. It won't have the, by the way, to this day, can I just say this? I have to keep saying this. Isn't that extraordinary? There's actually a group in DC that is allowed to be called special interest. And you're just going, that sounds not good. It's like, no.
So to close us out, we always ask this question on the podcast, and it's around the belief that I know that we share, that everyone has a role to play. I personally believe we now have an obligation to play this role in shaping AI at this inflection point, and that, the more people that are proactively doing something, the more likely the better outcomes that you all have been talking about will happen versus the dystopian. What do you feel is a way that, what would you recommend to people that can help them be the prompt, as we say, to ensuring the best possible future with AI?
Yeah, I want to echo what James said earlier. Well, I don't know if it was today or another day. Anyway, we've talked so much that it's all sort of amalgamating, but in my brain. But the idea that we all have a voice and that we all matter, and that we can participate in the conversation. Yeah, that's what James earlier said. Rather than complain and feel disempowered and apathetic, helpless. And I think that's kind of what's been happening in the world, especially recently, we all have to become active again. And especially with something like AI, it's just too big to ignore. We all have to participate in it, and we all have social media, and we all have a way to get our opinions out there. So I think that's and with films like this that create an impact campaign, to get involved, support, and not just stand by on the sidelines, complaining. Actually, be engaged and do something about it. I think it's too important not to.
And coming off the phrasing you used there, Heidi, thank you, Sergio. I agree with that. Just to add to that idea of prompt, everybody has a prompt. Everybody. It just, nobody even knows what that prompt's going to be for anybody. Like, I can't stand my father. We haven't talked in 20 years, and I don't think I'll ever be able to make it. Well, you have daddy issues, and I know it sounds extreme to go there and start with that, but like, how about AI helping you deal with daddy issues? What if you were talking to an AI bot that was so extraordinarily educated on this, taking all the time in the world, you're having a 30-minute conversation with a bot that's helping you with daddy issues? That's a prompt. You prompted AI to do something, and AI came back with something that knocked you out. And maybe now you have a better relationship with your father. Who knows? But everybody has a prompt. The question is, what's the prompt? And you just find the prompt. You want to learn more about filmmaking. You're prompting AI. Well, these are the best schools, or these are the best ways to do it. Or you could be, a filmmaker and start using your iPhone and learning about depth perception and whatever. I mean, I don't know. It's like, it's just whatever we're talking about here. But I really like that. Every one of us has a prompt. And even in regard to places on Earth, like, I've heard these amazing stories of these women that will travel like miles to go get water, right? Well, they know where the water is, right? I mean, I'm assuming that's why they're traveling there, and then they come back with the water. But imagine places where no one knows where water is, but imagine if there wasn't a way for AI to know that area so well, and then to be prompted like, is there water here? Is there like, yeah, it's right there, it's right there, it's right there. So again, it's a need, and then it gets prompted, and there you have it. So I think that's the key. We're all in need of something that we would want AI to be prompted to do. And we just need to prompt it to do it.
Also, we're society, through advertising, through messaging, through the media, we're being hypnotized every day. So wouldn't it be amazing if it could like actually learn, ways to hypnotize us for the better? What, neurolinguistic programming or other things, like advertisers are using it every day. So, and we're getting thousands of subliminal messages a day, that are shaping our worldview. So, if AI has the ability to kind of, like, I want to be hypnotized. I want to put headphones on. I want it to make me a person. So with my permission, it's like, go for it, man.
I absolutely love this. And Sergio's right. Like with marketing, that's all we see. They make the food look so yummy. They make everybody smiling. They make everybody having off faces. It could be a pizza commercial, but it's just like, this is just pizza, but they make it look so like, oh, we've got to order pizza tonight. All right. So that's the idea. What if we took some of the biggest things on earth and made it that attractive, that hypnotizing, that desirable to do something in our world based on that type of marketing? Because the other stuff is just like this, it's like I've seen that advertising a million times. I agree with Sergio. Just imagine if AI could hypnotize us like that for extraordinary ways and learn from those marketers, like so it knows, like, well, if you want to get the people, this is how you got to do it. You're doing it this way. You're not going to get them. You got to do it this way. And then you're going to get them. Let me take that ad from that commercial they did for that sports drink. All right, let me put that in here with this. Let me watch this. Let me show you guys what I'm doing. Play it. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There it is. Go. Wow, that'll sell. Okay, that's great. So that's, exactly.
And sell the things that are good for us and good for our future, right? And not the other stuff. Yeah. Well, thank you both so much. I'm glad we could share our meeting with everyone today. And I just have to say, it's such a privilege to work with you, and today's conversation only proved that more. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us on the Humanity Code Conversations. Remember, our future with AI is being written now and by us. Let's ensure it's a story that honors and elevates our shared humanity.